The Mariana Trench is located in the western Pacific Ocean, and it is the deepest oceanic trench on Earth. The Mariana Trench was very much unexplored until quite recently, and that is due to the extreme environment that it hosts. Full of darkness, immense pressure, and a ton of animals that have unbelievable features that have allowed them to adapt to these environments, the Mariana Trench remains one of the most mysterious places on Earth, and we are learning more about it each day. That is all why on today's Life's Biggest Questions we are going to be diving into the top 10 weirdest things found in the Mariana Trench. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Mariana snailfish. The Mariana snailfish is a fish that is found quite deep in the Mariana Trench in a range of 6,198 to 8,076 meters deep, or 20,335 to 26,496 feet. This was an important catch too, because it gave researchers a chance to get a look at and further their understanding of what anatomical, physiological, molecular, and genetic adaptations are required for animals who make their home in this extreme environment. Some of the adaptations seen in this fish are things like their transparent skin that lacks pigment, they have certain organs and eggs that are enlarged, their muscles are thinner, and it seems as though they have either little or no ability to see, which makes a lot of sense considering how dark their habitat is. This obviously means that they must hunt for their prey using other senses to detect any movement around them. In our number 9 spot today we have the DUMBO octopus. DUMBO octopuses love to live in the deep sea at depths of at least 13,100 feet or 4,000 meters, which makes the Mariana Trench a perfect home for them. The DUMBO octopus is not just one species but rather a genus, and they are actually the group of deepest living octopuses in the world, but they are also quite rare. These guys were named after the Disney movie Dumbo because of the fact that they have ear-like fins that resemble Dumbo the elephant. They are foraging predators who like to eat pelagic invertebrates that swim just above the sea floor, and they use their ear-like fins to swim while they use their arms to steer. Unfortunately, despite how cute they are, like all animals, the Dumbo octopus has predators it has to look out for. Their predators include things like tunas, sharks, and dolphins, and since the Dumbo octopus lives so deep in the ocean, they are rarely ever accidentally captured in fishing nets, so human activities aren't too much of a threat to them, which is always great news. In our number 8 spot today we have the zombie worm. These worms were first discovered in 2002 when they were living in the bones of a carcass of a dead whale nearly 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters deep in the ocean. The reason these guys have the common name zombie worm is because of the fact that their main food source is those same bones that they were first found living in. These guys love to eat bones, but in their own special way because of the fact that they don't have mouths or stomachs. Instead, they secrete an acid from their skin that dissolves the bones, which frees up the fat and proteins that are trapped inside. The worms then have their symbiotic bacteria that lives inside of them digest the fat and the protein. Here's the thing though, we actually don't know how the nutrients from the bacteria get to the worm. They either digest the bacteria somehow, or there's some sort of process where the nutrients get transferred. While when they were first found, they were chowing down on whale bones, zombie worms are happy to eat any kind of bone that they can come across, and they've actually been observed making a meal out of non-aquatic animal bones that somehow ended up in the deep sea. In our number 7 spot today we have the barreleye. If you haven't seen a barreleye fish before, get ready to have your mind blown, because it is insane to me that a creature that looks like this exists on our Earth. See what I mean? Barreleye fish, which are also known as spookfish, are a collection of fish which all feature very large telescoping eyes that protrude from the head, but that are enclosed in a large transparent dome of soft tissue. These fish are relatively small and are usually found motionless, just hanging out in their preferred depths of somewhere between 600 to 800 meters or 2,000 to 2,600 feet in the ocean. The discovery of this species first came in 1939, but it wasn't until recently in 2004 when someone was actually able to capture a photo of one so that the whole world could see this insanely interesting looking creature. Unfortunately, once taken out of their natural high pressure environment, their fluid filled heads just can't stand our environment up here, so it is definitely better if we just let them be safe and sound in their open home. In our number 6 spot today we have the football fish. The football fish belongs to the family of anglerfish, and they get their name because of the fact that they are shaped like a football. The females of the species are not only significantly larger than the males, but they are also the ones who carry the bioluminescent lure on their heads, which sways back and forth waiting to lure in an unsuspecting prey. Once their prey gets close enough, they will shoot out bioluminescent liquid that will act to temporarily blind the prey so that the football fish can go ahead and swallow it whole. The female of the species can grow to be around 60 centimeters or 24 inches, while the males do not grow larger than 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches. In order to mate, the males will bite onto the females and wait until their skin fuses together. From here, they are now stuck together, but it allows the male the opportunity to fertilize the eggs, and thus, more little football fish. In our number 5 spot today, we have the owlfish. Owlfish are a species of deep sea black smelt that get their common name from the fact that they have eyes that are almost as large as their heads. These guys are a fairly common deep sea fish, which obviously means that they're enjoying and doing well in their environment in the depths of the Mariana Trench. These guys can even be found at depths of around 19,685 feet or 6,000 meters. The owlfish's large eyes are definitely part of the reason they have been able to thrive in their deep sea environment, and that is because of the fact that the eyes are able to capture even the most faint glimmer of light, even in the darkest depths of the Mariana Trench. This helps them spot and capture their prey, which is usually things like small crustaceans and jellies, and it also helps them make sure that they don't become the prey. In our number 4 spot today, we have spoonworms. Spoonworms are a small group of marine animals that live in burrows in the soft sediment or in rock crevices or under boulders. There are shallow water versions of these guys, but today, of course, we are talking about the deep sea variety. The spoonworm is a soft-bodied cylindrical animal that is usually seen with a non-retractable proboscis, which is an elongated appendage that comes off the head of the animal. While, like I just mentioned, the spoonworms is non-retractable, they do have the ability to roll it into a spoon-like shape in order to feed, which is of course where their common name comes from. These guys are deposit feeders who like to eat the organic material off of the seafloor, and while different members of the spoonworm family can live at different temperatures, the Mariana Trench variety can clearly withstand the icy cold temperatures. The spoonworm also varies in size quite a bit, with some measuring less than a centimeter or 0.39 of an inch, and some growing to be over a meter or 3.2 feet in length. In our number 3 spot today, we have the deep sea lizardfish. These guys are a small family of fish that are most closely related to the telescope fish, and they like to live at a depth of somewhere around 1,600 meters or 5,200 feet, which puts them on the list for one of the deepest living apex predators. They grow to be around 78 centimeters or 31 inches, which makes them a pretty moderately sized fish, and they have a flat head with scary, curved, barbed teeth, which definitely helps with their whole predator persona. These guys are also vicious, as they will eat anything that comes in their way, and that even includes other fish of their own kind. Deep sea lizardfish throughout the years of evolution have been able to adapt to their harsh environment as well as their low population density in a few ways. First, to do with the low population numbers, deep sea lizardfish all have both male and female reproductive organs, which allows them more opportunities for reproduction. The other cool thing that shows how they have adapted to their habitat is how they have large eyes with large pupils. This is because they have quite good eyes that allow them to see any residual or bioluminescent light that you don't get often in the deep, dark Mariana Trench, and this is of course super important for their prey detection abilities. In our number 2 spot today, we have basket stars. Basket stars are like the Mariana Trench cousin of starfish, and when you see them, you can totally understand why. These guys have that same main kind of disc that you see on a starfish, but rather than 5 short, stiff arms, these guys have 5 long, slender, flexible arms that all branch out from themselves repeatedly to form even more tiny little arms, with the last branch usually ending up curled. There's no real rhyme or reason for the shapes of basket stars, as it just depends on how they grow, so while some look beautiful and almost like a webbing of lace, there are some that look absolutely chaotic. You know what they say, no 2 basket stars are the same. I I don't think anyone has ever said that, but we're gonna start. Basket stars are able to navigate around the seafloor by wiggling their arms around. They also have the ability to curl into a ball when they're feeling threatened by predators. They also do eat, as they have a mouth located on the underside of their disc, and they prefer to eat things like krill, small crustaceans, and zooplankton. We have made it all the way to our number 1 spot with sea pigs. These guys are a genus of deep sea cucumbers, and they have enlarged tube feet that appear kind of like little legs. They move through the top layer of sediment on the seafloor as they scavenge for their next meal, as they eat by extracting organic particles from the deep sea mud. They like to live at depths of around 1,200 to 5,000 meters, or 3,937 to 16,404 feet, and they have been seen to have a strong preference for rich organic food that has freshly fallen from the surface of the ocean. Sea pigs tend to measure somewhere around 15 centimeters long, or 4 to 6 inches, and they have their own natural defense mechanism, and that is the fact that their skin contains a toxic chemical that is poisonous to other creatures, making it a dangerous meal to attempt. Sea pigs are also known to host different parasitic invertebrates, but sometimes the relationship is commensal. Like, sometimes they like to provide shelter for juvenile crabs, which really benefits the crab because it keeps them safe from predators by having a nice little homey shelter. Sea pigs are another one of those creatures that is designed specifically for the deep sea environment, and unfortunately, when brought up to the surface, they disintegrate. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the BENTHOCODON. These guys are a species of jellyfish, but they are unlike any I have ever seen before. They are quite small and compact, with their bell measuring around 2 to 3 centimeters, and they like to live deep in the oceans around 762 meters down, and they are usually found right on the sea floor. Despite their small size, they still have about 1,500 little wispy tentacles that help them move through the icy depths of the Mariana Trench. These guys like to feed on small little crustaceans and unicellular organisms, some of which are bioluminescent, which has led to one unique feature about them. While the outer part of the bell on these jellies is the usual transparent color we are used to seeing on jellyfish, there is a layer on the inside that is red. This color works to conceal the bioluminescence of their prey that they just ate, so that they aren't just a dead giveaway in the deep sea. In our number 9 spot today, we have hydrothermal vents. The Mariana Trench is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is a tectonically active region where plates are colliding and causing subduction, which is how the trench itself was formed. Through this tectonic activity, as seawater seeps downwards through the oceanic crust, it gets really hot and becomes very rich in chemicals. This leads to the water becoming so buoyant that it comes back out of the surface of the sea floor, and this is what is called a hydrothermal vent, and as it turns out, the Mariana Trench has quite a few of them. These vents are a super important part of the ecosystem in the region, and the water coming up out of the vent is so chemically rich that it ends up being a feeding ground for the creatures that can withstand the extremely hot temperature. So while the animals seen on the vents are plentiful, there is not a wide variety. In our number 8 spot today, we have the frilled shark. Okay, regular sharks are of course scary and powerful, but the frilled shark looks extra terrifying because it actually looks like a full-on monster. The frilled shark is a species of deep sea shark that got its name from the 6 to 7 frilled gills it has on the sides of its snake-like body. This shark can grow up to 1.8 meters or 6 feet long, and its mouth is full of 300 razor-sharp teeth. This shark was one of the first deep-sea species to ever be discovered, because how could you possibly miss it? But because it makes its home so deep in the ocean, and because of the fact that it cannot withstand the pressure change when brought up closer to the surface, a lot remains a mystery about these guys. In our number 7 spot today, we have the ping pong tree sponge. While this sounds like the cutest little creature, and it truthfully doesn't look all that scary, the ping pong tree sponge holds a lot more than meets the eye. These guys get their name from their appearance, as it quite literally appears like a tree that is growing little ping pong balls, but those little ping pongs are exactly what makes this tiny creature so fierce. They are lined with little hook-like extensions that are designed to trap anything that gets too close. From there, the ping pong tree sponge slowly consumes their prey while they are still alive. We really took a dark turn when we started out with something that seemed so cute and harmless. In our number 6 spot today, we have vent crabs. Okay, so now that we've talked about hydrothermal vents, we can talk about one of the creatures that loves those things, and that is the aptly named vent crab. These guys swarm to the vents in such numbers that they can be used to help scientists identify the location of vents. Apparently these crabs only live on hydrothermal vents and aren't found anywhere else in the ocean. These white crabs, when young, have eyes that would be comparable to other kinds of crabs, but because of their extreme habitat, throughout their life they adjust. Upon metamorphosis, their eyes degenerate and become just naked retinas. Hydrothermal vents produce light in infrared wavelengths, and the degeneration of their eyes helps the crabs be able to see this kind of light, although it does leave them blind to basically everything else. It's crazy to learn about how these deep sea creatures have evolved in order to suit their preferred environments. In our number 5 spot today we have the CASPER octopus. This just may be the cutest creature we have on today's list, and it was discovered fairly recently by a deep diving robot called the Deep Discoverer. This little robot spotted a lonely octopus just hanging out by itself on a flat rock, and it went over to learn more. From there it totally stumped scientists because it kind of resembled a known shallow water octopus, but this one was of course being found much deeper in the ocean. Another reason it stumped scientists is because of its color, which is where it gets its name from. Most octopuses have certain pigments that allow them to change color, but this little guy was ghostly and iridescent, which suggested that it didn't have those same pigments. At its first discovery, scientists were pretty sure that they had stumbled upon an entirely new species of octopus, and perhaps a new genus as well. In our number 4 spot today we have the GRANROJO jellyfish. This jellyfish was first found in the mid-1990s, but it wasn't until 2003 that it was officially classified as a new species, and with this came a new subspecies of jellyfish as well. Before classification, this creature was being referred to as Big Ugly, which is just so rude, so thankfully it became much more affectionately named Big Red. These guys are the largest of all sea jellies, with their bell measuring around 76 centimeters in diameter. They have 4 to 6 fleshy arms rather than the slender tentacles we are used to seeing on jellies. Another thing that sets these ones apart from the other, transparent jellyfish, is that these guys are a gorgeous red color all over. Since their discovery there have only been 23 specimens found, and this, coupled with their extreme deep sea habitat, means that there is still so much about them that remains unknown. In our number 3 spot today we have the DAIKOKU seamount. I guess this could be a list of hydrothermal vent things, because here we go again talking about them more, but I promise it's worth it. This seamount is located in the Mariana Arc, about 325 meters or 1,060 feet below sea level, and it was found to be hydrothermally active in 2003. In 2014 it was discovered that the submarine volcano was either actively erupting or had been very recently. Along with these discoveries came the realization that this seamount also features a pool of liquid sulfur that was covered in some sort of black coating. This little sulfur cauldron is approximately 4.5 by 3 meters large and is 420 meters deep. There are rising gases like carbon dioxide and hydrogen that are coming from the pool, and they are moving that black crust that sits on the top. The rising gases appear like smoke, but underwater, which is just so cool. The really cool thing about this little sulfur lake is that it is almost an anomaly on Earth, and one of the few other sulfur lakes that are known is actually located on Jupiter's moon Io. While there have been a few other liquid sulfur lakes found on Earth, the one located near this seamount is the most impressive one we have ever found on our planet. In our number 2 spot today we have the aluminum plated amphipods. Okay, I'm willing to admit I might be the only one who thinks this is cool, but maybe I'm not, so that is why I had to talk about these guys today. Amphipods are creatures that can be found in oceans throughout the world at different depths, but the ones found in the Mariana Trench are unlike those anywhere else. These guys are found in the deepest point on Earth, the Challenger Deep. Amphipods usually have shells made out of calcium carbonate, but the extreme environment of the Challenger Deep would make those shells just simply dissolve, so these guys had to make some insane natural adjustments so that they aren't just swimming around naked. When scientists collected a few from the deep sea, they realized that their exoskeletons contained aluminum. How? Well, apparently these guys use sugar-based chemicals in their bellies to extract aluminum ions from the mud on the sea floor. In alkaline seawater, these aluminum ions form what is called aluminum hydroxide gel, which is something that we as humans use for things like treating an upset stomach. So once they have this gel, it basically coats their shell to keep them safe and sound. I don't know about you guys, but that's one of the coolest things I've ever heard a shrimp do. In our number 1 spot today we have giant tube worms. Okay, we are ending off with one more hydrothermal vent creature, and that is the giant tube worm. Like the vent crab, these guys live and thrive in the extreme environment near a hydrothermal vent, and they feed off of the tiny bacteria in the area as well as the chemicals coming from the vent water. They grow to be around 8 feet in length, but they have no mouth or digestive tract, so those bacteria I just mentioned are super important to their livelihood. These bacteria live inside of them, and somehow this relationship forms a wonderful symbiosis where they can both thrive. These tube worms also don't have eyes, so they have the ability to sense movements and vibrations. If anything makes them feel threatened, they can retreat into their protective tubes to hopefully keep them safe. Starting off in our number 10 spot we have the deep sea hermit crab. Okay, so we've all seen or at least heard of a hermit crab before. You know, those little crabs that find their homes in empty shells to protect their fragile exoskeletons. Well, those might not be the weirdest things out there, but their deep sea counterparts really up the ante in terms of the bizarre. Instead of carrying around the empty shells like the shallow hermit crabs do, the deep sea ones instead use sea anemones, and it is truly a strange looking relationship.
This anemone actually replaces the sort of shell which pagurids usually house themselves in. They look like they're missing.
While it looks like these deep sea hermit crabs are missing a pair of legs, they've actually just adapted in a way where they are used to hold the anemone in place. I'm not gonna lie, these guys really appear like a gross sea spider that I never want to have to encounter. In our number 9 spot today we have a plastic bag. When diving to the deepest point on Earth, one probably doesn't expect to find human trash, but unfortunately, here we are. In 2019, Victor Vescovo took a dive down to the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. Getting there is an incredible feat and a major move for science, and Victor, along with finding a ton of new information and even some new species, was also rewarded with a reminder of the plague of plastic pollution. While discovering a new type of crustacean, Victor also found a plastic bag just hanging out at the bottom of the ocean. How great! While this certainly wasn't the best part of the dive, that should not be a reason to diminish the incredible work they were able to do that day, and the fact that this was the deepest dive ever recorded. In our number 8 spot today we have plastic crustaceans. Considering what we just talked about, this is one discovery that just may help us all out. A few years ago there were little shrimp-like creatures found around 20,000 feet deep in the Mariana Trench. While a shrimp is not necessarily a creature that deserves a spot on this list, these guys are, and that is because of what researchers found in their bellies. As it turns out, these little creatures were eating plastic. More specifically PET, which is a common plastic resin that is most commonly used in the fibers for clothing, packing food, and for plastic drinking bottles. It is kind of sad that we found a new species only to realize that before we found it, it had already found our plastic pollution, but researchers are hoping that this discovery brings more attention to how bad the pollution really is. In our number 7 spot today we have FORAMINIFERA. These guys are giant single-celled organisms that are kind of like oversized amoebas, and they can be found in the sediment on seabeds throughout the world. In 1995, however, when Japanese researchers were able to collect samples of sediment located in the Mariana Trench, they found 432 living ones. I know I just made these guys sound really large before, but I just mean large in terms of the single-celled organism world. They're still super tiny, and they're usually found with a hard outer shell, but not the ones in the trench. These guys have found a way to adapt by basically building their own shells from proteins, organic polymers, and even sand. The ones most commonly found in the Mariana Trench are called xenophytophores, and these guys use the fact that grains of sand are mostly made out of silicon dioxide, which is the main constituent of glass, to their advantage. They basically glue sand from ocean sediments, cast-off shells, and microbial skeletons to make their own kind of pressure-proof shells. So I guess they're the engineers of the deep sea? In our number 6 spot today we have immense pressure. Considering how I've talked about the extreme environment that exists in the Mariana Trench on every part of this video series, it only feels right to take a second to really dive into the amount of pressure that actually exists down there. On the surface of the ocean we are sitting at a base of 1 atmospheric pressure. When you go just 10 meters down into the ocean, that number already doubles. Taking this knowledge and the fact that the Mariana Trench is 11,000 meters deep, it becomes quite clear that the pressure is going to build quite a bit. The pressure changes causes the air in your body to compress, and the deeper you go, the more dense the water becomes. These facts are easy to comprehend, but it can be quite difficult to really conceptualize what that means and just how deep the trench really is. 1 atmospheric pressure, which is what we are sitting at, is 1.013 bars, which is the unit used to measure pressure. In the depths of the Mariana Trench, that number skyrockets to 1,086 bars, which would be the equivalent of 100 elephants standing on you. Now I'm really starting to see why there have only been a few who've made the trip down to the Challenger Deep. In our number 5 spot today we have barophilic bacteria. Since we just talked about the immense pressure that exists in the Mariana Trench, it only seems fair that we talk about something that thrives off of this extreme environment, and that is barophilic bacteria. This bacteria is characterized by its preference for an environment with greater pressure than atmospheric pressure, which of course makes the trench a perfect candidate for a home. These bacteria have been isolated from deep sea environments and found to grow rapidly at low temperatures and high pressures. This low temperature high pressure combo that is found in the deep sea environment is usually the cause for the decrease of the fluidity of lipids, as well as the depression of the function of biological membranes. But this doesn't happen in this bacteria, which has led to the theory that they must have some sort of mechanism that allows their lipids to adapt to their extreme environment. Aside from their superpower, these bacteria help to support life by being a source of carbon for the deep sea animals that end up ingesting them. In our number 4 spot today we have the telescope octopus. These guys get their name from their unique protruding eyes, which allows them to have better peripheral vision so that they can see both their prey as well as their predators better. These creepy eyes also have the ability to rotate, which sounds absolutely disgusting and very painful, but I'm sure it's totally fine for them. Many species of octopus like to hang out on or around the seafloor, but these guys prefer to just float or dangle in the deepest currents of the ocean. Another thing that is weird about the telescope octopus compared to other octopuses is how most like to swim horizontally, but the telescope octopus prefers to swim vertically. It's not quite clear why, but it is thought that this might be so that it is harder for predators to see their shape. The telescope octopus has nearly transparent skin, and in between all of its 8 tentacles there is a delicate webbing that makes it look like the ghost of the deep sea. In our number 3 spot today we have the frogfish. Frogfish may be weird to look at, but they are masters of disguise. They are quite sedentary fish and usually find their home 1,000 feet or 300 meters deep in the ocean, right on the sea floor. The reason these guys are so good at disguising themselves is because their colors vary greatly, and they have the ability to change colors in order to adapt to their environment, which lets them blend in super easily. The color changing process can take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, so they aren't quite as fast as, say, a chameleon, but still, I don't have that kind of power, so I'm gonna go ahead and call their little skill pretty impressive. These guys also have a little modified fin on their head that resembles a fishing rod with bait. This helps lure in their unsuspecting prey who think they're going to get a nice tasty meal, only to quickly realize that they are about to become the meal. In our number 2 spot today we have comb jellies. Comb jellies are gelatinous creatures that are named for their unique plates of fused cilia, which are called combs. These combs help the jelly move through the water like boat oars, and while other microscopic organisms also have this sort of mechanism, comb jellies are the largest animal with this feature. These combs are also part of the reason that comb jellies are so gorgeous to look at. Rather than bioluminescence, the rainbow light effect that can sometimes be seen on them is from light diffracting off of the combs in all different directions. Many comb jellies have one pair of tentacles, although they appear to have multiple, but that is just caused by their tentacles branching out. These tentacles are used to help them hunt like a sort of fishing line. Aside from this, these jellies don't sting, which is always a good thing, not that I'm planning on heading into the deep sea anytime soon. In terms of today's list, I'd say that these are one of the less creepy creatures we've got going on. In our number 1 spot today we have the vampire squid. The vampire squid is the last surviving member of its order, and it has similarities with both the squid as well as the octopus, which might make it a contender for the most threatening animal on today's list. Like the Dumbo octopus from part 1, this guy has little ear-like fins that help it propel itself through the water, but unlike the Dumbo octopus, it isn't small and cute and sweet looking. Like a jellyfish, the vampire squid has a gelatinous body that helps it move quicker through the depths of the sea. The vampire squid is covered in light-producing organs called photophores, which they are able to use in a way that produces disorienting flashes so as to confuse their prey. While the vampire squid doesn't have ink, it does have the ability, when in really dangerous situations, to shoot out a bioluminescent mucus at whatever is attacking it. Also, the squid is able to regenerate its arms. So I think this all goes to say that if you were in a fight with a vampire squid, I really hope you came prepared, because he sure did. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed today's video, and subscribe. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye! right. Oh, what? No freaking intro? I definitely wrote one. I probably just didn't copy and paste it into the script. All right, we're freeballing this. Okay. What's in this script? Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay. These combs help the jelly move through the waters like boat oars, and while other microscopic